You see, one cannot be too tired of reflecting on the state of our education because whether we like it or not, we need to know and understand the fact that no society can move forward in the right direction without standard education, both in form and in contents. Unfortunately, our education system is anchored on the fact that, oh, once we a kind of progression or one level to the other, we are not really taking a serious look at the contents of those progression. Yes, in primary school, I don't know whether anybody still repeats primary school, primary six, what we call G2. And I don't even know what in public schools, even in private schools, whether people still repeat a class. It was a kind of mass movement. You move from Form 1 to Form 2 or GSS, what they call GSS 2 now, and after GSS 3, you are deemed to have finished the junior section and you move to SS 1 in public schools. If it has stopped, it has just stopped. But I know that there was a particular, in 1984, I know of a school where they had to go and look for what you call chalkboards, what we call slate chalkboard, where somebody who's supposed to be in Form 2 is still being taught on chalkboard and out in lecturing. I mean, so embarrassing. It's something I witnessed in the school in Lagos. I the school, let us be clear about it. After government took over schools, both public and of course public schools have always been owned by government. When they took over the primary schools built by communities, individuals, and the missions, I don't know whether they deliberately took them over to destroy them because I am still at a loss to know how many iconic schools deteriorated to the level in which I found them, I and others, in 2009 when Governor Gbenga Daniel in Ogun State decided to return schools to the previous owners if they showed interest, and then a panel was set up headed by a distinguished professor of mass communication who also was involved in that of Lagos State, Professor Ido. Yes, I mean, he was in University of Lagos. He used to be a special advisor to Jakonde, and also he was involved at some level as special advisor to Tinubu, to Bola Tinubu, the present president. Oh, by the way, no matter my moral opposition to his policies and to his politics, I keep never stop to acknowledge the fact that he was the one that was instrumental to the turn of Igbobi College to the nation and being currently managed and properly run by the nation and the old students at the national level. So as I was saying, when we went round in order to determine the state of those schools, what I saw of many iconic schools across the state, whether you want to call it from Shagamu to Imekwa or from Abeokuta to Ijebu Igbo, those schools that when we were growing up and we were in Lagos, we used to hear their names, their infrastructure, like Abusi Dumari, which was founded in 1969. Yeah. Well, you can say Green College 1932 and some other comprehensive high school, Ayetoro, Molusi College. We went round. And of course, many didn't have laboratories, what they call laboratory. Those that have were usually opened. Maybe when exams are coming and the teachers are able to get reagents together, which they used to practice maybe 2 or 3 days before, or 1 week before WAEC in those subjects. Laboratory was not something students were used to as part of a subject. Part of a subject, yes. And I know what laboratory should be. And you might want to wonder, okay, yes. In the Gobi College of my days, in the 70s, God, we had junior, we have science lab, we have junior. It was a complex. We had senior laboratories. I mean, it was a whole complex of a block, depending on which class you are, whether you were from from 1 to 2. I think there's a laboratory where science subject was taught and a little bit of serious equipment. From 3 to 5, that was so-called junior lab. The A levels, these were laboratories. In terms of library, forget it. Yet, in my growing up, I know what a library is. It's not about whether a teacher oversees a library. We had a library that was being managed by somebody who was appointed. And we have, it was also maybe about 3 or 4 large rooms, different sections, magazines, books. And at a point in time, I remember that in the 70s or early 80s, after I had left, the Igbo College was adjudged to have the best laboratory in Lagos State. Now, what we witnessed in those schools were nothing to write home about. Were not. So it just got to show that we were not even ready to run public schools. When we asked some of them about, they complain about the fact that the money that was supposed to be given to them running cost. Some said in the last 2 years, and I'm talking about 2009, they weren't being given. And even when they now try to get some support from PTA, the same government will now, for political reason, go on here and say all things have been provided for them, for the schools to run, and no teacher, no school is allowed to charge any. I remember that even after Brigadier Daniel left, a teacher who complained about the way questions were being set in schools was suspended, and the NUT didn't see anything wrong with that. So what we found out, which was responsible for the way the schools were deteriorating and we still kept, was that many people in the Ministry of Education, or those education minders, were benefiting heavily from budgetary allocations to those schools, and so they encourage people to protest. They encourage people to protest, and those who really protested more were the Muslims and some PTAs, association, because there was a racket. There's a racket there going on. So for me, until we're able to find a system where those directors, assistant directors, whether administrative officers connected with education, have their children in those primary and secondary schools, as a matter of state policy, those schools public school would never be run properly. Because many of them didn't have their wards and children in those schools. Right from Nazareth, in the Mekwa, for Molusi College, Ebude Grammar School, we were all there. We were all there, comprehensive. Growing up, what I heard about comprehensive grammar school or Ayetoro was like, was that really a school? The way it was being described. And when you see their products, who are members of my generation, you will know they receive education. you would know they receive proper education. I mean, probably slightly better. I mean, slightly, Igbobi College was better anyway. I mean, just by the way. I mean, but what do we feel there? Get those director, assistant directors, principal, assistant, clinical here and there who were part of education. The all these years, let them have their children there. Because I specifically asked, how many of state officials have their children here? They say, maybe the clerical officers who cannot afford private schools. So how can you give what you don't understand? They're making money out of the system through quality education. Of course, I also know the fact that most states have a politicized education. They want to talk about, oh, we are given free education without really putting the money down to those who run those schools. So the whole idea of education is complex, it's major. That any serious country that wants to advance has to just put money in education and not just building schools. You see them, a school, a new governor comes in, he begins to build his own, roof it with whatever color of patches his fancy. Meanwhile, beside his own building, you will find a dilapidated structure with roof, and there are still pupils in those, classrooms. But such person wants to show the fact that this is our own. It's not your own. Let them get to know. They need to be told that these buildings are not yours. They are being built from public fund. Why this egoistic thing? Remove the ones you have there. Make provisions for the needs of the schools. We don't have to see building before we know your education is being properly run. We know of a state governor in this same country that was being accused that he didn't build any school. And I was happy that the guy came on the air and said, why should I build schools? When I arrived in my state as governor, so many schools were in ruins. His state was number 30 something out of 36 states in WAEC results. So why do I need to build schools instead of now fixing the soft infrastructure? At the same time, he provided computer for every school, provided generator for every school, built health centers, and it's true to be challenged. So what is the point of them building schools? I mean, if schools are not just, education is not about building blocks of schools. For 2 years consecutively, the same state came first in West African School Certificate examinations. So who has really built schools? Well, we can't really finish the talk on state of education. No, it's so complex. It's very, very complex. I don't know whether I've been able to, just give you a hint about what it looks like. We're not talking about university education. We're talking about primary and secondary schools and what needs to be done. Thank you.